Hey everybody, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Welcome back to Cinema Trip Reviews, everybody. I am Wyatt, and once again, Alex, you were joining me this week. Before we get into the show, I just want to thank everybody that tuned in during our October Spooktacular, just all the horror movies and everything. It was quite a workload for the whole month. Did a lot more videos than I was expecting to do, but man, it was a lot of fun, especially you joined me for pretty much damn near the whole month, Alex. It was a lot of fun. I just want to thank you for coming on the show all those times, especially at today. But also everybody that tuned in, watched, liked, shared, and subscribed to the channel over that month, because it was a blast. And October was a huge month for the channel. Just wanted to thank everybody here quick.
I appreciate it, and I'm surprised this movie didn't have werewolves in it. That's all I'm saying.
We are talking about Roku's Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Did you know too much about this movie going into it, Alex, at all?
Not at all. Barely anything.
Anything? Have you seen a trailer or anything for it at all?
Nope. The only thing I know from this movie is I do the podcast, which everybody should go check out, the This Is Important podcast, which is the Workaholics guys. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of upset about it because Daniel Radcliffe got the part and the Blake from Workaholics did not get the part. And so they had like a whole episode kind of roasting this. They were like, nah, that's bullshit. And like they were joking, but that's literally the most I have of this movie.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this one is directed by like Eric Appel. He's worked with like Funny or Die and a bunch of other stuff. I don't think he's done like any feature films. I think this is his first feature film. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he actually directed the original short that this was based off of, pretty much. That came out, I believe it was in 2010. The short came out.
Yeah, I did
the original that. Funny or Die, and it had like Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. He played Weird Al in it, and I think Olivia Wilde. That's who it is.
Oh, okay.
She played Madonna in the trailer of that one. But over 10 years, removed from that video, apparently Weird Al just kept getting asked like, "Oh, when's your movie coming out? Or like, when's the biopic? You got to have a movie eventually." And then, sure enough, they're like, "We keep getting asked about it. Let's just make it into a full-length movie. Why not?" And it's funny that you mentioned about like the casting of Daniel Radcliffe, because everybody that kind of threw everybody for a loop when it was initially announced. Is like, why Daniel Radcliffe? Why Harry Potter out of all people to play Weird Al? Until you like see the movie and see that, okay, this is the perfect movie for Weird Al's biopic, because it is a parody of other biopics. So what other casting choice do you have than the person that probably shouldn't be playing Weird Al from the get-go, But I think some of the other stuff, like characters that you see throughout the film, they kind of nailed perfectly, other than Weird Al.
Nailed it, man. when the slideshow plays at the end, and that's not spoilers, it's in the credits. Like I was watching that and I was like, oh my God, like that person looks just like that person. Yeah, they nailed some of the other casting.
But yeah, of course, it just stars Daniel Radcliffe. Weird Al is in there actually as well. And I'm not going to go through everybody because there are so many people in this movie. There's so many cameos. Yeah. But like the big ones you have is like Rainn Wilson as like Dr. Demento. You get Evan Rachel Wood, who's huge pretty much for like Westworld and some of the other stuff she's been in. I know her mainly from Westworld, but she plays Madonna in here as well. But those are really like kind of the main players in this movie. And we'll get to some of the cameos eventually. Now, what did you think of this movie, or like what did you expect going into the movie? First off, I guess.
Well, I expected it to be more of a biop, and it was not. Like it really reminds me of the Dewey Cox story. If anybody have seen the Dewey Cox story,
yeah.
This was very reminiscent of the Dewey Cox story for me.
It is, yeah.
And not a bad way. The Dewey Cox story, if we ever review it on the show, is one of my favorite comedies.
It's hilarious.
I think it's such an underrated masterpiece. I think it's so funny. And this really, like, it gave me that kind of vibes, and I loved it. So
yeah. And it is getting compared to Dewey Cox a lot. I think there is a couple things that kind of separate them. I feel like Dewey Cox, it parodies a lot of different musical careers. Like you have Johnny Cash, as of course from Walk Hard at the time or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Not Walk the Line. Sorry, Walk Hard is the Dewey Cox one. But you have like Bob Dylan in there, the Beatles and stuff like that. But it doesn't really, it is ridiculous at times, and it's kind of a, just a comedy of that time, but it kind of stays within the constraints of what they're doing as, as a biopic for a musical artist, where this one, it goes bonkers out
way
there.
off of the way off into the west side. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. So, and it goes to a place I wasn't expecting, because I kind of assumed it would be like a Dewey Cox, how it would have some ridiculous stuff here and there, kind of typical Weird Al humor, kind of similar to like UHF. Has anybody ever seen UHF? But man, this goes off the rails at certain parts, and it really leans into, instead of just kind of throwing ridiculous stuff out there, which it does at certain points, it really sticks to being overly dramatic for laughs at certain parts. And at some it works a lot, and some it's like, all right, it's drawing it out a little too far, or it's a little too much at this point.
Yeah, that's how I felt like it lost focus in the last half. And I don't want to give too much away till later in the video, but I felt like the first half of this movie was very focused, and I was with it. And it, like you said, it just goes off the rails at one point. And I think maybe on a second watch, now that I'm expecting it, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But like at first watch, you're like, Jesus, this is like not where I was expecting anything to go. So I think it just loses a little focus going forward.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping I was going to be able to get a second watch in before we did the review, but I didn't get the chance to.
Me either, yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it goes off the rails, and then it kind of comes back into what it was doing, and by that time where it starts picking up again, the movie's kind of over at that point. You're like, oh man, I want more. I needed more from this. I needed to continue what you kind of started there in the first half before you got a little sidetracked for a minute. There is some truths in this, is what I'm gonna say. There's little sprinklings of truth throughout this movie before it gets too off the rails. Like Madonna plays a huge part of this movie, where as Weird Al he said he's only met her like once in real life. Like he's only like been around her once, and it was just a brief passing. It wasn't really anything crazy, where it's like they have a whole relationship. She's using him to gain album sales if she parodies, or if he parodies her songs. And that's actually a truth in this as well, is the Yankovic bump was a real thing, apparently. Like, whenever Weird Al would parody some of these artists' different songs, their record sales would skyrocket, because he's just putting their name out there. Maybe some people aren't used to listening to their music. They hear Weird Al parody it, and they're like, oh, I want to go check out the original version. But that was very much a real thing, and I like how they kind of put that into the movie here as well. And then it gets to a point where he's like, I'm not even doing parodies anymore. I want originals. It's all originals from now on. And it's hilarious from that point. I love how at a certain point he's like, I made this song called Eat It. All original, everything's me. Like, they just, every time they even talk about Eat It, he's like, oh, that's Weird Al's original song. He wrote it himself. Never been released before, or something like that. But I like how like they have the story, you come up from him being a little kid with his parents, and his dad is just ridiculous. Like, it's the dad from like Halloween 2018. He was in a couple of episodes of like Seinfeld and stuff back in the day. But like, he doesn't want him to be like, he doesn't want to play it. Not even just accordion, but in the music business at all. He's like, you're going to be working at the factory
I just want you to quit all your hopes and dreams. That was one of my favorite lines.
We don't ask for much. We just want you to give up your hopes and dreams. And like just work in a factory for the rest of your life. He's like, well, what do you make in the factory? He's like, I can't tell you that. You have to
work at the factory.
You gotta work at the factory. But what's in the factory?
What do they make?
But what do you make? And even when he's working at the factory, the guy laughs at him.
Your dad told me you were funny.
There's so many like reoccurring jokes throughout the whole thing. Like that dude, the Hey Boy had me dying at certain parts. Like that shit was so funny.
Now, I know you're a huge Weird Al fan. You've been to some concerts and stuff like that. Me, I have not. Now, without going into spoilers, I just want to know what you thought of the general movie. Like, as a Weird Al fan, what you think? I'll re-ask the question, but
I mean, I kind of said a little bit earlier. I wish there was more to it. Like, I know I appreciate it going off the rails and somewhat crazy at certain times, but I kind of wanted, like what you mentioned, kind of a more straightforward biopic. Not okay. I don't want it to be like Dewey Cox or anything like that. I feel like they could have found his way of doing something, weird, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. But I feel like they could have done what they did for that first half throughout the whole movie and made it span more of his career instead of kind of ending at a certain point. But I mean, the ending, which we'll get to, is ridiculous. If you saw it, you already know what we're talking about. That ending doesn't. There's nothing else to go off of from
Yeah.
there. So
We ended it.
they ended it from right there. So there's no sequel or anything planned, I don't think. But I wish they would have kind of dove into more of his career after a certain point. I wish there was more songs in it too, because they kind of used just a couple different ones. But I wish they would have kind of dove more into his catalog a little bit. Because the songs that they did use, they're all re-recorded. They're not the original versions.
Yeah.
Apparently, he went back and re-recorded all these tracks again, just kind of put out a new album for the movie soundtrack and everything. I just wish there was more to it. I enjoyed the movie, though. I thought it was pretty funny. I laughed throughout the whole thing. By the end, I was like, okay, it's going on a little too long, I think. I know it was a little close to 2 hours. With everything that was there, I think it could have been a little bit more concise. They could have shortened a little bit, or at least taken out some of where you go through that ridiculous, like, middle part of the movie. You could have shortened that a little bit, to kind of fit some more stuff in there to kind of help that ending a little bit.
Yeah, and as not a huge Weird Al fan, and not that I like Weird Al, but I agree with you. I think I was down with them going off the rails, but they needed to hone it in and then come back. And it would have been okay if you jumped off the rails and jumped right back. We were in a comedy parody at this point. Like, I was okay if you would have went back and forth and gave me a little whiplash, but it felt like it just kept down the wrong track.
Yes,
We didn't need to go down.
I wish there would have been more ridiculous stuff. Like, they kind of they set their mind on just that one ridiculous. It was like Weird Al and Madonna for a majority of the movie, where I think that could have been its own little piece of the movie, and then you just move right on to the next thing where it's like, oh, there's another ridiculous situation or something else, and then that kind of drives the movie until you come to, you could have still had the ending they had, but I feel like they shouldn't have focused a lot of that time on just that one segment with him and Madonna. I feel like that was a little drawn out too far throughout the movie.
Agreed. I think it could have, and I know most people hate Family Guy. I think it could have benefited from a little Family Guy humor where it's just like this back to the story, Like, you can set things up and keep moving forward, But other than that,
it could have been like his own retelling of something that he was telling somebody or something, like just a little, similar to kind of how, like, his UHF, like his little daydreams he has in UHF. It could have been like that a little bit, but I can understand why they wouldn't want to do something just like that. But overall I enjoyed the movie, though, and that's really all that matters. It was funny. From reading some of the reviews leading up to it, everybody's talking about, oh, it's hysterical, it's awesome, it's one of the best comedies you've seen in a while, which I think it kind of hyped me up a little bit more than I was expecting, because as I watched it, I was like, I got some laughs, some genuine laughs in there, but I don't think it was nearly as hysterical as a lot of people were making it out to be through, like, other reviews and different, like, pre-screenings that you saw on, like, Twitter or whoever else posted reviews at the time. So I think my expectations were a little too high going into the movie. And like you said, I think if I watch it a second time, I think I'll like it a lot more than I did the original time. But I liked it on my first watch, though.
I'm with you. Let's get into spoilers, because I don't think I can talk much more without getting into too obvious spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well go in, like, kind of chronological order
with it.
So you start with, like, Little Weird Al. And I love that scene, like, we're at the dinner table where he talked about, like, you got to give up your hopes and dreams or whatever. He's like, well, I want to be a singer. He's like, well, why don't you sing us a song then, Mr. Singer? And he sings Amazing Grace, but it's like Amazing Grapes. And I was laughing during that, because, like, I didn't, even though I'm a Weird Al fan, I just wasn't expecting that at that time. I just thought he was going to sing Amazing Grace. But as soon as he said grapes, I was like, all right, it's this kind of movie now. I get it. This is where we're going. And I loved it. And he's like, those aren't the words. That doesn't take any talent. You just
This is where I really felt like and it really does wear its badge on its sleeve like an honor, which is good. This is really where I really felt like the Dewey Cox when he goes into the party right after the Maze of Grapes. It moves quick, and he's like, "I can't be listening to polka. Like, what if my parents come in?" Like,
Yeah.
I was cracking up in that. Like, they were treating it like they were selling drugs or something.
Yeah, and
Just listening to polka.
I wanted to get to that too, but like, it's just funny. I like how Weird Al can laugh at himself, and
Oh yeah.
just even like, well, parody, that doesn't take much talent. You're just making up words to somebody else's songs. Like, they make that joke through a majority of the movie, and I love how they say it a couple of times. He's like, I want to be like the biggest artist of this most specific genre of music or whatever. I forget the exact line, but he's like, I'm going to be the greatest accordion player, the most well-known accordion player
of a specific genre.
Yeah, because he even says greatest. He's
not.
Like, I want to be
like,
the greatest. Well, maybe not the greatest, but the most well-known accordion player in a most specific genre of music of all time.
He's like, technically not the best, technically.
But I love that, and like his dad's flipping out, and I like how you get like Thomas Lennon, who plays like Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911. He shows up as like the accordion salesman.
Yeah.
And I like his like little pitch to him, and he's just selling him on this accordion, like, "Oh, you're a one-man band. Everybody will flock to you," and he's just selling the shit out of it. And his dad comes in and proceeds to just beat the hell out of him for like 5 minutes straight, just beating the hell, punching him in this living room, and just blood's flying everywhere and stuff. Is like, what is going on at this point? And his mom buys him the accordion anyway.
I feel like we're gonna have a hard time talking about this movie because of how ridiculous the plot is. Like, because you mentioned it earlier, like there is so many callback jokes that I feel like some scenes rely on these callback jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Even when he's beating the shit out of the guy and then he like walks away and the mom, like, she sits down, like it's a callback to like when they're first at dinner, and I'm just like, this, like, and it's 10 minutes into the movie at this point. I'm like, oh Jesus, we're already into callbacks at this point.
And I like how he's like sitting there, he's like, "Please help me," and she's like, "Excuse me, we're having a conversation."
I think that type of comedy is where this movie thrives. So like the awkward, like, "Hey man, chill," like we're gonna get into one of my favorite scenes much later in the movie, but like it's that type of comedy still.
But yeah, then you get that time jump like you mentioned, and I like that, like the scene on the bus where he's like a teenager now, like going into high school or whatever, and he's like, "Well, we're having a party out tonight. You want to sneak over to the house or whatever?" He's like, "I can't." And he's like, my mom tucks me into bed because I'm afraid of the night terrors will come or whatever." He's like, "What? Your mom tucks you in the bed?" And they like tell him how to sneak out, and they're like, "Use a hey boy." And he's like, "What's a hey boy?" And and the mom goes in at night, and it's just exactly what it is. It's just his clothes filled with hay, with this big round just ball of hay as a head. And they didn't even notice. She goes in, she's like, "Good night, honey," and just closed the door.
Tucked him in, yeah.
It's just tons of hay everywhere. But like you mentioned, he goes to the polka party, which is like, I think it's his third album that he has. It's called Polka Party, and it just immediately made me think of that. But it's like, it makes you think that like, not, it's like polka is illegal, polka parties are illegal, like everything, accordions and like that type of music
like
is
they're
like
Footloose or something.
Exactly, yeah, like, and because the cops come in and bust him, then they're like, "Yep, we found him at a polka party." Like, they're just like peer pressuring him into trying to play the accordion that his mom told him to keep secret, that he knows how to play accordion all these years because she bought him that. And like, I love how they play the chicken dance to get him to do it. And he's just, "Fine, I'll do it." And he's just fucking, you could tell it's Weird Al playing because he's got like hairy ass arms while he's doing it.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
You didn't even notice that? Oh, you could tell it's definitely an old guy's hands. It's definitely like Weird Al playing. But he's shredding on that accordion, man, before the cops come and arrest him.
I wish they would have let him play something, though. Like, they didn't even let him do anything. Like, as soon as he picks up the accordion, the cops bust in. I thought that was going to be the first, like, Weird Al song.
Well, yeah, he just starts shredding on the accordion, and then, they come in and get him. But I like, they take him back to his parents. Like, "Yep, we found him at a polka party." He's like, "That can't be our son. He's in bed." And his dad comes out holding the hay boy.
Like, "Hey, boy."
I was dying because he just runs out so pissed, like, he has a hay boy. Like, everybody knows about hay boys in this universe. But yeah, that's like you get that huge fight. His dad breaks his accordion and everything, man. And he goes out on his own. He's gonna make a name for himself. And then you cut to Daniel Radcliffe as a grown-up Weird Al Yankovic in college, I guess, with living with his buddies. And he's trying out for a like a punk band. It seems
Oh,
like
which is funny. That's a funny scene too.
nobody wants an accordion player in their band. I've tried out for like 15 different bands.
Yeah, I love when he's trying out and they're like, he's like, we'll let you know, and he's like, well, when will you let me know? And he's like, right now, you didn't make it. He's like, okay.
And I like how he's just like, he's talking with his buddies. He's like, I just want to make it big. It's just like, he's like, well, what do you want to do? He's like,
Just to make up new words to a song that already exists.
Oh, well, you should do that then.
well, why don't you just do it right now? He's like, I can't just do it right now. Like, it takes time.
And then he does it right now.
And then he
time.
does it like right now. And I like how dramatic it is where he's forming that first song of My Bologna, where he's like making the sandwich and then dude says a couple of the lyrics. And as the song's playing in the background, he's putting it together, like making the sandwich, like My Bologna.
My Bologna. I gotta say, and again, I'm not a huge Weird Al fan, but like My Bologna is one of the first songs that I remember that I knew that song before I knew My Sharona. Like I knew My Bologna before I ever heard My Sharona. So My Sharona is like a knockoff to My Bologna for me.
I think they kind of lean off of that into the beat it, eat it aspect of the movie.
They get there.
Because that was kind of similar for me. Like I heard beat it before I heard eat it before I heard beat it. And I feel like a lot of people have at this point. I feel like a lot of people have heard beat it before eat it before they hear beat it. But they lean into that for a most part of the movie though. But yeah, he writes My Bologna right there in the kitchen. And like, I feel like it works at some points, but I feel like the lip syncing is odd. Like, I feel like in some parts it works better, but some it's like very off. And I don't know if it's just because it's Weird Al's voice coming out of Daniel Radcliffe, because you can just tell that voice is definitely not coming out of this guy.
Yeah.
But it's a little off-putting at certain parts, but for the most part, I think it works though.
I do. I like after he says about it and they go to the bathroom and he's like, the bathroom has great acoustics, man. So he wants to record My Bologna and they go to the bathroom. I love when they're like kicking dudes out of the bathroom.
And that's an actual thing that happened though. Like that's one of the factual parts of the movie is that's like Weird Al recorded like the first demos for his first album in a bathroom at his college campus or whatever. That's an actual true part of the story.
See, then that kind of hurts the movie for me because when I'm watching it to this point of the movie, I'm like, okay, this is obviously exaggerated things, but I knew Weird Al had like a weird coming up. Yeah. So I was hoping they played off that. But as we'll get into later, it goes completely off the wall eventually where I'm like, oh, well, this is nowhere near the truth anymore, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, we're already, for the most part, you're getting some truth. So you're getting more truth than not here in the beginning, except for like the parents, because I guess his real parents were like just very supportive of him. They bought him his accordion, and they were totally fine with him doing what he wanted to do. But they wanted him to go to college and everything for something to fall back on in case the music didn't work out. But yeah, he went to college, made his demos in a bathroom and everything, and then he even was a regular listener to like Dr. Demento and everything on the radio, and that's where he kind of got his start. He sent his music in to Dr. Demento. Demento would play his songs on the radio, invite him in to play live and stuff, and then he got more traction and got noticed and started going on like some of these late night shows and some of these shows where people could play live on TV, and that's how he got kicked off, man. But not in this case, man. I like how he makes the demo and he goes and he mails it and he does like that little dance outside of the mailbox. And then he gets home and like, I can't wait. He's like, I'm just waiting. It's like, when am I going to be famous? Like, it doesn't just happen overnight. Some people take years, like years and years of just practice and hard work until it pays off. And then he turn on the radio and is like, here's that #1 hit that's been taking over the radio. It's like, it's Weird Al.
He's like, I just got it 5 minutes ago in the mail. It's #1 hit.
He's the biggest artist in the world. And he's like, oh my God. But it just takes off from that point, man. And then he goes and visits one of these record execs played by Weird Al and Will Forte.
Best part, dude. I think they should have had Weird Al play more parts of the movie.
I think so too. He should have been in it more.
He should have been not only in. I think he could have did multiple characters. I think he could have been a bunch of characters.
I think so too.
He was funny in it, dude. Good for him for his acting chops on this, because he's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's great, and I like how they're like, "Oh, you have what it takes, kid. We can do it. We're gonna sign you to like a 5-year deal or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, you serious?" He's like, "No. What do you think? We're
No.
crazy."
I love when Will Forte is giving at him. He's like, "You are the worst piece of shit." And Weird Al's just like, like,
Come on, man. Come on.
like, come on,
Jeez.
relax.
And he's like,
Will Forte,
yeah, he's like, "Well, you suck." And he's like, "Well, he does have a point there."
he's good there.
But he's like, "But you only have one song. Everybody that makes music has more than one song. Go out and make more songs and come back. Maybe in the future we got something for you, but not right now. You gotta go practice your craft. Go play in front of some live audiences if you know that's what you got to do. Get your name out there." So his next mission is to make more songs and play in front of a live audience at that point. Yeah. So he makes a song about ice cream and he goes to like a biker bar to play him on accordion.
Which is funny too. This is a good scene too.
He's like
with Pat Oswalt. Pat Oswald's in this.
Yeah,
scene.
Patton Oswalt's out there. Yeah. And I just like that interaction backstage. He's like, "I can't go out there. They're going to eat me alive." He's like, "I have a song about ice cream." And they're seen as like heroin or whatever, like bikes and heroin. Literally like push him out there onto the stage and everything. And then they decide to get the courage to go up and play with him. And he's like, after the show, he's like, "I didn't know you guys could play musical instruments." He's like, "Well, it didn't really seem like that important until now."
Never came up.
Never came up. They just knew how to play, and now he has a band all of a sudden. But he played like "I Love Rocky Road" at the club.
And Dr. Demento season. This is where Dr. Demento actually like
Rainbow, like Dr. Demento's just chilling at that biker bar
in like full getup too, just like top hat and everything.
And I like how like the bikers are just so angry and just like hate what's going on at first, and then like by the end of the song, Patton Oswalt's like crying. That one lady goes up to the bar and she's like, "I want 2 scoops of like whatever ice cream you got." And he's like, "We don't serve ice cream here." She's like, "Well, you better have ice cream."
You
by
better
the time.
start by the time this song's over.
From that point on is when you start getting like even more ridiculous stuff. Like he gets well known, he goes out and gets signed. He's like the biggest artist ever at this point. He's on the cover of different magazines.
Oh, I like we skipped over it a little bit. I like right after he meets Dr. Demento, he goes to that party with him. And this is where there are so many cameos in this fucking party, dude.
Oh yeah.
Everybody. Like it's like Jack Black's there, Conan O'Brien's there. Like I'm not, they're playing characters.
Yeah, they have a couple of the Lonely Island guys are in there. One of his like longtime collaborators, I forget his name, but he was in like UHF, and he was actually did stand up whenever I saw him this past time. But he was in there as like Salvador Dali or whatever his name is.
All right.
But there's so many like famous people in there. Like Conan plays Andy Warhol. I was like, is that Conan O'Brien?
I rewinded
totally
for Conan too. I was like, is that Conan? I rewound the movie and I was like, it is Conan.
They have like Devo in there. They have like Tiny Tim in there. Pee Wee Herman, Alice Cooper. They have tons of different celebrities at that time. Just kind of walking around that little pool party that Dr. Mento's having.
And I wonder, and you would probably know this better than me, did that actually happen to Weird Al, or he went to like that first big party where he was like, oh shit,
I don't know, to be honest. The only story I can think of from watching an interview was just the one time where he said he went, one of the first parties he went to, he saw Paul McCartney there.
All right.
He talked, and like they talked to Paul McCartney. He's like, "You're that Weird Al guy." And he's like, "Holy shit, Paul McCartney knows who I am."
It was me?
He knows my songs. But like that's the only story that I know about. I don't know if there was one party where it's just a ton of different celebrities like that though. That I don't know. But man, and because it tops it off with Wolfman Jack, played by Jack Black. And I don't know if you know much about Wolfman Jack, but I actually had to kind of go. I've heard about him because of my dad. My dad apparently listened to him when he was younger. But he was just another huge radio personality at that time. And he sounds exactly like Jack Black does in that scene, bro. If you go and watch some YouTube clips of him, Jack Black does it justice. Like perfect, spot on, dude. And I wasn't expecting Jack Black to be in the movie. And I'm a pretty big Jack Black fan, so man, that was just a kind of a cherry on top of that whole scene with all these other, celebrities and cameos that I was interested in, like Conan and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like the joke about like I forget his name, but he's kind of a well-known actor as well. But he plays the bassist for Queen, and they're like, oh, and like he even says his name, and everyone's like, huh? And he's like, I play bass for Queen, and like, oh, okay, he's that guy.
Oh, all right, Queen.
And Jack Black is like, he even tells him like, oh, you're such a big shot, huh? Well, why don't you make up a song right on the spot? And he's like, that's right, you can't do it. And they start walking out, and he like makes up like Another One Rides the Bus was his song at that time. And like the bassist for Queen's like, that was so good. We are such a huge fans of you. We're doing Live Aid in a couple weeks. We want you to open up for it. We can't do it without you opening up. Like, hard pass.
Hard pass.
And I cracked up so hard because I kind of expected him to be like, nah, I'm good. But I wasn't expecting him to hard pass.
He comes out. He's like, no.
He's at that point where he's like, you know what? I want people to know me. He's like, because he tries to like win his approval. He calls his mom and everything from that hotel room. And then she even tells him like, nope, your dad just never really wanted to have kids. Like he just was never really that into you. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to win my dad's approval. I'm going to go out and make my own original songs. I'm not going to parody other people's songs. So he goes out and makes Eat It. And he's like, this is my first only original. I made everything up. This is all me.
Yeah, this is when the movie starts going real off the rails. I love what he is eating, the mac and cheese or whatever he's eating. He's like, this mac and cheese tastes funny. He's like, that's because it's loaded with LSD.
He's like, what? After he gets off the phone with his mom, yeah. And like he walks around and Dr. Menzo's just sitting in the tub with his top hat on.
He's like, there's other tubs. And he's like, nah, I'm good. And he's like, no, there's other tubs in other rooms. And he's like, nah, I wouldn't put you out, man. Don't worry about it.
I didn't really like the CG stuff that they did in that.
I
feel like it felt very out of place. I feel like they could have did something else. I like the first part of it, where it's like Dr. Demento, like, you know, like the kaleidoscope type imagery, and he's just laughing at him.
Yeah.
And like telling him different stuff. I
it
like
goes
that.
Crazy though.
I didn't like him just like sitting on that conveyor belt with like in hell, and his dad's face is morphing and stuff like that. I could have done without that.
This is where the movie really starts to lose track.
Yeah.
Like now it feels like we're on a trip from here on out.
Yeah. I mean, he like makes Eat It, which is as they mention a bunch of different times, this is his original song. Nobody else has made this at all.
I had to Google this, by the way, because I really didn't know. I was like, did he make Eat It before? And I had to go, and no, Beat It came out like 2 years before Eat It. But I had to Google it because I had no idea.
And it's fun. I actually watched this the other day. It's a funny story. Apparently, because he parodied so much of Michael Jackson stuff, like a couple like Fat and Eat It, but he also did, because Michael Jackson had the album Bad, where it's like him with that leather jacket on the cover. Then Al made the one album Even Worse, and it's the same exact album cover as Michael Jackson's with him in the leather jacket. It's just called Even Worse. And because he got like a gold album or something off of that, he tried giving it to Michael Jackson. He's like, I mean, it's pretty much your album, and I made like parodies of your songs. Like, you could have my gold album. And Michael Jackson's like, oh, thanks. And he's like, oh, just throw it on with the other ones.
Yeah, I got tons of them.
The hundreds of other ones I already have.
I did see a cool story about Michael Jackson where he was really down for Weird Al's music. The only thing he wouldn't let him do is, I guess Weird Al wanted to do like one of Michael Jackson's Humanitarian songs. Jackson, he was like, nah. He's like, you can't parody that. He was like, that one means too much to me. But that was a good story.
I mean, there was a couple of different ones. Like, apparently, like, they had the falling out with Coolio and everything, which kind of, there's a little thing in there at the end with Coolio.
There is a little thing in the end, yeah.
But he had one thing with Nirvana where he parodied Smell Like Teen Spirit. Kurt Cobain told him, like, if you're gonna parody our music, it can't be about food. I don't want you making any songs about food about our, like, with our stuff. So he went and made like Smells Like Nirvana, where it's just talking about how, like, you can't understand what they're saying in Nirvana songs at all.
I actually just watched the whole, it's on Watch Mojo if anybody wants to go check out Watch Mojo, but I did see about Nirvana too, saying like Kurt Cobain was like, I know we made it once Weird Al parodies our stuff. You know? Like, I know we're successful now. There's a bunch of
that's what everybody really thought, and that's kind of attributed to like the Yankovic bump that they mentioned in the thing as well. But there's certain like life points that Weird Al, like the Oprah scene where he goes on Oprah and everything, or Oprah's talking about him, that actually happened in real life. There's like, he actually posted it a week or two before the movie came out of the actual clip of him on Oprah and everything. It was pretty cool to kind of go back and see some of these clips that you wouldn't be able to see any other time. He's going out there and releasing them to the public.
Yeah.
But I love when he goes back to the record execs after he makes Eat It, and he throws it to him. He's like, put it on. And like he listens to like 10 seconds of it. He's like, that's enough.
I've heard enough.
I've heard enough. You're signed.
Which is, again, a callback joke to the first time where he's like, I heard enough. It's trash, you know? Because it just keeps coming. It just keeps calling back.
Yeah, and that's where like the Oprah, she's pretty much there to explain the Yankovic bump, and Madonna's watching Oprah at that point, and she gets the bright idea, like, I'm gonna boost my record sales by going out and getting him to do a parody of my song, even though at this point Weird Al's like, I'm not doing any parodies anymore, all originals from here on out, baby.
I wonder, and we're gonna get into it, but they paint Madonna in a bad light in this film. You like, did they have to get a sign off on that?
I don't know.
Like,
I feel like
fuck it.
I feel like this wouldn't even be on Madonna's radar at all, though. But you're right. I was thinking about it the whole time too. I was like, man, they really didn't do any favors for Madonna in this
man,
movie.
they paid. And poor Madonna, like, what did she do to anybody? From that Watch Mojo thing, she was really supportive of Weird Al, apparently. Like, when they did Like a Surgeon, she was like, I want to be in the music video. I want to be a part of it, you know? Like, she was really supportive of the man who, like you said, they only met once or twice, but she was down for it.
Yeah.
Like, and they just painted her in a real bad light in this film.
But this part pretty much takes up a majority of the movie. Is him dating Madonna. And it's so funny because after you're with these two characters for a while, and then they're at that scene and he's like, man, we've been through so much, and I've only known you for like 6 hours or whatever. And like, you've had so many scenes with them already. And it's like, it's only been 6 hours. That's where you get into the very like cliche biopic type stuff. These musicians, they reached rock bottom at a certain point where she's the bad influence on him. She's taking him down the road of just like drugs and alcohol at that point. He's
getting mega famous. He's breaking up with his band. He doesn't want to be a part of his band anymore.
Yeah. He's like, you're all normal. I'm the weird one. I'm the weird one. Oh man, yeah, and he's like alienating everybody. But yeah, and that's when she gets kidnapped by Pablo Escobar.
Oh, which is another one of my favorite scenes when they're in Madonna and they're like, it's Dr. Demento talking to him, and he's like, Pablo Escobar offered you $3 billion to do his show. And he's like, how much is that in Mexico? Never mind, I don't want to do the math. And he's like, no, I did the math. And he's like, I could do my own math.
If I wanted the math done, I would do the math.
I would do the math. But anyways, yes, Madonna gets kidnapped by Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, because he wants Weird Al to perform at his birthday party.
Yeah.
And he locks and loads and goes to like Cuba.
And now it's an action film.
And now it's an action film.
We're way off the fucking beaten path at this point.
And I'd probably say this is probably one of the parts I laughed the most was whenever those two guards go searching for him. Like, they hear something in the bushes and they go looking for him, and they open up the bushes and it's a fucking Hey Boy sitting there. I lost it, dude. I just like, I thought about it, I was like, no way it's gonna be a Hey Boy. Like it didn't click until it like almost just when it was about to happen. I was like, no way that's gonna be a Hey Boy. And sure enough, it was in his like Hawaiian shirt and everything.
This opposite effect for me. This is the part where I'm really like, what the fuck is going on with this movie? Like, how have we gotten here at this point?
Because he's even wearing, like, when you see him, he's wearing like a camo Hawaiian shirt,
yeah.
And he goes in, he's just murdering everybody, dude. Like, he stands up there, he's like, well, I just wanted you to play a song. Well, you're here, just play a couple songs for us. He's like, no, I'm getting my girl, and I'm leaving, getting the hell out of here. And then like they pull guns on him, and he just mows everybody down. There's blood flying everywhere.
Yeah, he's like Rambo. He's just like shooting people with a machine gun. Just
mowing everybody down, man. Just like the scene from UHF where he is Rambo.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, I've seen this scene before.
He's wearing like the muscle suit. But I like the dude that plays Escobar, and I feel like he's just a funny guy in this. He played
from
it pretty well.
He has a show on Comedy Central. It's like Americano or something, where he usually does like a lot of like racially insensitive jokes and stuff. Yeah, which are fine. I mean, it's comedy, whatever. Yeah. I'm not like, he was funny.
He was pretty funny though. But yeah, he's like, you guys could have just left. You had the option. You could have just left. Leave.
Yeah. He's like, really? He's like, no.
No, I'm just joking. No. And then he just throws, like, he gets shot, and he has like the 5 like platinum albums around his neck.
He's like, I came platinum.
Chucks it into his head, and then he
Which
like
was
makes a
gory.
point to go, and he pulls it out of his head. So he's like, I want
like-
my album back.
He's like, this is really in there. And he's like struggling. There's blood shooting everywhere.
But this is the part of the movie. I feel like they could have trimmed this down so much.
Oh, yeah.
Not just the Cuba stuff, but everything with Madonna. Like they could have made this one little part of the movie of like his career trajectory, you know?
Yeah, this felt like where it was going off the rails, even though, so he gets the thing, he kills Pablo Escobar, and then Madonna's like, we can run this drug organization. All I want to do is just be rich and famous. And this is where he finds out Madonna's just using him for his Yankovic bump. And but this is one of my favorite part of the whole Cuba scene is where she's trying to shoot him, because now she's like, I'm gonna be a drug lord, so she tries to shoot Weird Al, and she's just fucking missing him
everywhere. He's just walking away.
Yeah, and like she's just crying. She's like, like not even looking, just like popping the gun. It's just like popping like smoke around him and shit. I was cracking up in that scene.
You actually get like a surgeon in this movie as well. He re-recorded Like a Surgeon. He goes and he reunites with his band to perform Like a Surgeon, but he is once again still drunk at the concert and everything, and he has like a meltdown while he's doing it. He's like, "You're all slaves."
You want to see it? I'm gonna whip it out. I'm gonna whip it out. You're all gonna see it.
And next, the security guards there on the side of the stage, bro.
Hope you guys are ready for this.
He's like,
And he's like, and he pulls the accordion up. But I totally forgot about that until you mentioned it. I'm gonna whip it out. You want to see it? I know you all want to see it. I'll give you what you came for.
This is a little bit. That's the scene before they go to Mexico. We're switching
because she's on the side stage, just like egging him on to do it.
Yeah. He goes and visits his parents after this, right?
Yeah, and this goes. I was not expecting this. This goes because the first part of the movie, and it comes up in that second part where he talks to his mom. She says like, "There's stuff about your dad that you don't know about or whatever that he wants to tell you, but he just can't." And then he finally gets his dad to like tell him, and he's like, "Well, I wrote it all down for you," and he gives him like this huge fucking book.
Yeah, and
he's like, "Oh,
you have any pictures?"
Yeah,
and he's like, "I got a sketchbook." I like though, and you'll probably be better at this because you know his discography. Right before all that, they're talking, and the mom gets real fat for some reason. Like she gets real chubby, and he's talking to him. They're like, "Oh, your inspiration will come. It might be right in front of you." And he's like, and the mom's like, "Yeah, right in front of you." And I thought that was gonna lead into a song. Is that a Weird Al song?
It's
or
Fat.
Am I
Yeah, the parody of Bad by Michael Jackson. Because they even say a couple of the lyrics. Because she says, "I'm fat, you know, I'm fat, you know it," or whatever. And it's like the chorus too fat. And like she says
I
it.
didn't know.
And I was like, oh, and there's a couple of parts of that, like throughout the movie where they say some of the lyrics to a song. They
that's
do it with
usually
My
how
Bologna.
it builds up. Yeah.
But like at that part, I was like, it was a little too on the nose for me. Like you didn't have to say those exactly. Like
but
I feel like
the
joke with her just being fat and then mentioning it and saying inspiration will come, I feel like they could have just let it at that, and it would have been like I would have got it. Like, oh, okay, fat, I get it.
I'm with you, but it does pay off because, like you said, the dad pulls out this book and everything, and he goes over his history and like Wyatt said, there's like the part where like he's like, "Oh, I didn't want you to do this because apparently the dad was Amish," which we all kind of know this is going in.
I was like, "Oh my god, you kidding me?"
He had an accordion, and it goes through that whole story about how he couldn't play the accordion, which is how he writes Amish Paradise.
Well, yeah, but he like left the commune or whatever to go out into the world, and then he played and everything, and then when he came back, they didn't want him anymore because they thought it was like the devil's music and stuff. And then he wrote Amish Paradise. Yeah,
and Weird Al finds it, but I love when Weird Al finds Amish Paradise, and he's like, he goes back to his mom, and he's like, we were talking. She's like, "We're past that. We're on a whole different conversation now, Al. Like, get to it.
Get it together.
Get it." And I was laughing. I was like, because I knew they were setting up something, and I didn't know it was fat, but I knew they were setting up something.
And when his dad even like when he finishes the story, he's like, "I can't believe it." And he's like, "I just sat here and told you the whole thing. What do you mean?"
What do you mean you can't believe it? I just told you. No wonder you couldn't believe it. No, he says like, "I never knew," and he's like, "Yeah, I know you didn't know. I just told you.
Told you everything." It's that type of humor, man. Like throughout the whole thing, that's that kind of shit I like. It's hilarious to me.
That is the best.
But yeah, like you said with the mom, with the like with the fat suit and everything, I thought they were building up to do the fat song, but they swing straight over to Amish Paradise, where he's
Which I
like, okay, that's probably one of his, if not one of his biggest hit. Like, of course, it's probably gonna, it's gonna be in there. And sure enough, they threw it in there, and have Daniel Radcliffe dressed up as an Amish person on stage. And I like how they have everybody like in the crowd there, like they even have Weird Al there, and that's his wife next to him, like his real wife, like sitting next to him there. And I think the actual band members were there as well too. But it's pretty cool, and that's where you're kind of wrapping up the movie at this point. He's the biggest star ever. He's gonna get a Grammy, or I guess the equivalent of a Grammy or whatever.
He's gonna get the reward for the accordion flavor. That's the best, but not technically the best in a specific genre of music. That's the reward he's getting.
Yeah, that's the award he's wanted his whole life.
Yeah.
And I love the suit. It's like the palm tree like jacket and everything. Man, he looks dope. And man, I was not expecting Madonna to come back in this way
with like an eye patch.
Yeah, the eye patch and like the cross earrings and stuff, and like the
big scar down her
Nazi hat or whatever on. But she has like an assassin in the audience who's just slowly taking out this huge ass gun in front of the whole
everybody.
And he's in the front row too, so Weird Al could have saw him doing it. But you're like, oh, he's gonna get assassinated at his award, and sure enough, he does, bro. He gets lit up.
Madonna cries. She's like, do it.
Do it. She orders the hit. And that's how the movie ends. Weird Al gets assassinated, and everybody celebrates the life that he and the career of Weird Al Yankovic.
The greatest artist of all time, according to the movie.
Yeah, and I love that since the movie came out over the weekend, I've been kind of going on and watching clips on YouTube and stuff, and there's people in the comments now that are going on with the joke where like, I remember Weird Al, like 19 whatever to 1989 or whatever it was, and like he was such a great talent that will always be missed. Like people are like buying into it and stuff and going with the joke now that he died back then.
That's funny.
But yeah, you get that. It kind of ends like pretty abruptly there. I feel like it was very anticlimactic for the ending. They should have had something build up to, I feel like it goes out on such a low note, I guess, but it also,
how do you end this movie though?
Exactly. But I feel like it still kind of goes out on not a downer, but just kind of peters out at the very end, and just, I don't know. It wasn't very climactic, I guess. The ending didn't do much for me. I think the credits were hilarious, but
the credits were funny. I think there was funny scenes in the end, but I'm with you. By the time Madonna becomes a part of his life, and I think the movie starts teetering out right there. So I think the last 35-45 minutes it starts teetering out, and I'm with you. The end kind of
and as soon as you're done with the Madonna stuff, it feels very rushed.
Man,
it's good, but it feels very kind of rushed to the ending at that point.
I'm not saying there's nothing good in those scenes. Like I think there are funny parts in those scenes, but this is where I felt like he lost some creative control, and it was just like, we gotta get this movie done. Like we can't go over every beat of your life.
Yeah, true. Because there's a lot more they could have covered, but I mean, of course, most of this movie isn't factually correct anyway, so they could have came up with some other ridiculous shit to do as well.
For sure.
But yeah, I like the credits where you're getting like all these like some old photographs that are legit, and then a majority of the photographs are just, photoshopped his face onto different things, different stuff. And then like these different memorials that people are having with different signs, like Remember Al or like the Legend of Al and everything. Oh man, and they even have like one of the last photos of him is him getting blasted and like blood flying everywhere where he got assassinated.
With like the real Weird Al's face now.
Yeah, with the real weird. And dude, I don't know if you noticed when they were showing the video for Eat It at one point.
It's Al. Yeah, I saw that.
Well, no, it's Weird Al's video, but they deepfaked Daniel Radcliffe's face on Weird Al in Weird Al's Eat It video. So I had to like get close. I was like, is that really? Did they do that? And they did, man. Like, cause if you look close enough, it is Daniel Radcliffe's face in the video of Eat It. But everything else in those credits are Weird Al, though. His face is kind of slapped on different people. He's getting punched in the face out of like a bar brawl, and
he's getting carried out by the cops on that one. It's like a famous picture of him getting carried out by the cops.
There's pictures of like him and Madonna and like other people too. But overall, what did you think of Weird the Al Yankovic story?
Uh, I liked it. I would say my biggest complaint, which is a minor nitpick, is my Weird Al song that I love is White and Nerdy, and I wish they would have went up to White and Nerdy.
We didn't get that far in the timeline.
I was really excited to hear White and Nerdy and to see how they played it into it. So I'm upset they didn't do that. But other than that, I think it suffers a little bit from losing focus, but I almost feel like that's intentional because that's Weird Al. Like he's very random. He's very like off on the thing. So I think this is a very good Weird Al movie. So all in all, I liked it. I actually thought it was pretty good. I mean, I think on multiple watches, I'll appreciate it for what it is. I only watched it once.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't top UHF for me though. I do love UHF.
Yeah,
I think it would be a good like double feature if you ever watched them like close together. I thought it was pretty decent. Like we mentioned before though, that middle part with Madonna definitely drags on a little bit too long. I would have liked them to introduce some of his, like maybe one or two of his actual original songs into the movie at some point.
Yeah,
because that is kind of a. I know the joke is "Eat It" is his original song, but like they could have had maybe a joke
but
in
they
there,
went there.
or where he made like his own original song or two, and they're like, "That sucks," or like they're saying like people hate on it or something.
Yeah.
That's not as good or whatever. They could have used something like that. I don't know, or I don't know. I feel like they could have kind of dove into kind of the making, maybe like making fun of like the making of the albums or making some of the videos or something, because he's always getting dressed up and doing zany shit for some of the music videos. Maybe incorporated some of that into the story as well. But they seem like they're dead set on doing their story with Madonna as like the antagonist, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
shitting on Madonna.
that being a pretty big part of the story throughout. So I liked it though. Like you said, I think I'm gonna have to definitely watch it again to gain more appreciation of it. It doesn't mean I didn't like it though. I did. I really enjoyed the movie. I laughed pretty hard throughout though. It had a lot of funny moments for me.
I think right now, I to your rating, I think it's a rent it for me personally.
Yeah.
But I think in time it could become a buy it. And I know we've compared it a couple times, but even Dewey Cox, which again I said is one of my favorite comedies of all time. When I first watched it, I didn't quite get it either, and now 27 watches in, whatever I'm at this point. Like I love the movie. I think it's hilarious. So this might build. And I think watching it has the potential to do that.
And I feel like with Dewey Cox, man, I feel like with that movie, I feel like it was so perfectly fine-tuned. I feel like it was just down where it was like a laugh a minute type thing. Like it was just constantly rolling throughout the whole movie. Whereas this, I feel like there was some parts where it was kind of like they were using the dramatic effect as the comedy, and it goes on a little too long and it doesn't necessarily work. Whereas like where Dewey Cox, they have the dramatic effect as comedy, but they also put jokes within that as well.
Yeah.
So it's constantly something going throughout the whole movie,
And to be fair to this, I think Dewey Cox peters off in the end a little bit too. I think it's hilarious, but I also only think the Dewey Cox, like the last like 15-20 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm kind of done with this now, where this is like the last like 30-40 minutes where I'm like, I'm kind of done with this, so but other than that, I think I'll gain appreciation for this. I think this will go up there as those are my type of movies. This is my type of humor, so I think I'll get it. I think I'll get it going later into it.
Yeah I mean it's definitely going to be one I come back to eventually.
Yeah, me too.
I would definitely say it's more of a rent it movie though. I wouldn't say recommend going out and buying. I mean, it's on Roku for free, but I wouldn't go out and say like this is a must buy for anybody. Yeah. I would have liked to see what they could have done with this if they would have had a bigger budget and if it actually had some studio backing like Dewey Cox and actually put it out in the theaters.
Yeah.
Maybe they would have went with the same route as far as story, but maybe they would have went more ridiculous with it if they were able to do something if they had more money on hand.
Yeah.
Maybe they spent all the money on the cameos. Maybe that's what happened too.
Give me my white and nerdy cut. White and nerdy cut. White.
Get the director's cut. The weird cut.
The weird cut. White and nerdy. Bring me white and nerdy.
It's just a deleted scene of just like what happened with that song in this universe.
That's all I want.
Thank you for joining me again here, man. Hopefully get you on the show going forward. Every
Always.
now and then. You know how it is. Thanks for everybody for tuning in for the show. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe as always. Go follow us on Twitter at CinemaTripViews. And also go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see everybody else next week.